Alright guys, this is BLT on BLT's Projects, and I am looking at a project that is my car. Alright guys, this is BLT on BLT's Projects, and I am looking at a project that is my car. And I have been waiting to make a video on why you should pay attention to your car and know a little bit more about it. And sometimes why mechanics make mistakes and what you can do about it. And really guys, if you have an issue with your car, you should always look underneath your car when you leave your vehicle. You should if you park in a garage, always look at the floor when you leave. There is my culprit. You can see it's going to drip here in just a minute. I took this to a shop that I've done tons of business with, and I bought this car, my Subaru 2010 Legacy Premium GT Turbo car that I was super excited to get. First thing I did is took it to a shop that I deal with on a regular basis and got an oil change and a coolant flush. And just the other day, it started seeing oil on the floor, and there it is. It looks like they did not put the crush ring on the oil pan bolt. So it's just dripping and been dripping. If you look here, this is the plastic cover underneath my car, and you can see the oil that has just been sitting. And then underneath this, I have a piece of cardboard. And that is all the oil that came off my plastic pan right here. This pan right here. When I took this down, all that oil came out from underneath my car and has slowly just been dripping. And so, we're all human. We all make mistakes, but this is just one of those things that just irritates me about shops, that they make simple mistakes like this. And if I hadn't paid attention, the car could have ran out of oil. Major catastrophe. And why I think it's this oil pan bolt, or the oil fill, or the oil drain bolt is what it's called technically, is because if you look underneath the engine here, you can see it is clean. So there's no other sign of oil dripping down. There was some on the filter, but there's nothing else is wet. The turbo isn't wet. You can kind of just go underneath the car and you can just see. Let me get a flashlight up there. The other side of the car is right here, and just completely bone dry. This car's only got 50-some thousand miles on it, so I thought maybe a valve cover gasket maybe was leaking because it is 10 years old, but it is not the case. It is just poor workmanship, and I probably just did put the crush washer in there, so it's just a shame. That's why I kind of started BLT's Projects, trying to help people. I'm not an expert mechanic, and if I can't help, I tell people, but I try to be thorough. And but a simple thing like this on an oil change just is inexcusable in my opinion. It's the basics, the very basics. So just wanted to show, I'm gonna take this to the shop in the morning and show them. I'm not gonna say what shop it is. I'm just gonna be like the kids these days who ghost in the restaurant business. When I was in the restaurant business, people didn't come up and say, I'm not coming back to your restaurant because I got bad service. They just quit coming. And I'm going to give the feedback to the shop on this one. But I'm not going to put them on blast on here on the internet. I'm just not going to use them anymore. It's unfortunate because they're good people, but they've made mistakes over the years. So you can see right there, the oil's just seeping out of that drain bolt. Probably doesn't have the crush washer on it, so but this is why you pay attention to your car. If you hear a funny noise, the fluid's underneath it, don't just dismiss it. Take your time and either have somebody look at it like me, who can take a look at it, or take it to a shop you trust and have them put it up on the rack. I always encourage people, just look underneath the rest of the car. You can see the transmission back here, super clean, nearly spotless. There's a little bit of oil slung on these parts here, and I'll clean all that up with some brake cleaner and wipe it all down, get it all looking good again. But the rest of the car is super clean, so you know, it's pretty easy to find that. But you know, if you take it to a shop and you're asking them about it, don't be afraid to ask, hey, can I walk out and look at it with you, and have them show you exactly what they're looking at. Any reputable shop, in my opinion, will absolutely do that. So, and I have a Subaru EJ255 engine, dual overhead cam turbo. This is the Subaru oil filter, made in USA. Part number's on there, 15208 AA15A. However, I'm going to use, this is a filter. It is a Mazda Tokyo Roki Japanese filter. The reason I'm using this filter is because the pressure from this one has a better range than this one. So for oil pressure reasons and the turbo to keep the engine properly lubricated, this one actually is better overall. Subaru used to make Tokyo Roki oil filters made in Japan, and they just quit making them. But they should be basically the same oil filter. Should just go right on there. But I believe these are better filters overall. Shout out to Mr. Subaru 1387 on YouTube. He did a huge comparison on oil filters, kind of went through the pros and cons, and this was his top pick for EJ255 dual overhead cam turbo Subaru engines. So we'll move over to the car and we'll get this installed. So this is a 15mm bolt for this drain plug. Now, changing your oil could be a bit messy, so make sure you have a drain pan handy. I'm going to move this back so it doesn't get dirty. And also another thing is make sure your car is kind of cool, especially on this engine, because your exhaust manifold's right here, so you don't want to burn your hand. So, and also up top, make sure you loosen your oil cap so that your oil flows more freely. See, here's how you can tell there's a serious problem with who does your oil change. Because I didn't even really get a bolt. I didn't even get a ratchet up here yet. And this is so loose. This is finger loose right here. Now, what I was about to say before I put a socket on there is, contrary to popular belief, this doesn't have to be super tight. You know, I think the torque on it's like 12 foot-pounds. It should just be nice and snug. But what we're really looking for is when all this comes out, is when I pull that drain plug, and I want to see if there's a crush washer on there. That's going to tell us everything. So I can't believe that's just finger loose right there. That should not be that way at all. Part of changing your oil, you really should do everything you can to not make a mess, if at all possible. There you go. Like I said, that might be hot, so make sure you get out of the way. Looks like, if we look on here, it looks like there's a crush washer. Maybe it just wasn't tightened down enough, or maybe it wasn't the right washer. But it definitely looks like there's one on here, so we'll get this cleaned off and inspect it further. Alright, so you're gonna let that drain, and then we'll clean that up. Here's the new crush washer. This is the old one, and here's the new one we're gonna put on. I'm not sure what happened. I'm not sure if the shop didn't tighten it down at all. I'm not real sure what happened here. Gonna have to talk to him. I'm still pretty disappointed though. I had to do this. I was gonna do an oil change, but I was gonna wait a little longer. But anyway, so we'll get all this wiped down here and get this new crush washer on here, and I'll go from there, and then we'll get the oil filter out. And I'll show you how to do that. And then the other reason you clean this is so you have an idea, so you know it was clean. So the other thing is once you tighten this, make sure you move your oil out of the way, because if you drop your socket or wrench or something, you don't want to drop it in your oil. One way you want to do this is to have a filter wrench, and you're just gonna put that on there, and you're gonna try to break this loose. Now, again, your oil filter. Now again, your oil filter, and you can see it, it's already dripping because it was loose. And your oil filter really shouldn't be that loose, but it shouldn't be on there with a lot of torque either. So you're just going to kind of twist it off of there, and you're just going to get that started. Again, changing your oil is not a clean job, so we're going to let that drain for a minute. When we reinstall the new filter, we will pre-fill this new filter. We will pre-fill it just to help make sure there's plenty of oil in the system when we turn the engine back on here in a little bit. I am happy to see that this shop I used a Purolator oil filter, which on the US side is the company that makes Subaru USA filters. This filter, we are going to fill it with oil partially, and we are going to take oil and we're going to go around the ring to help that gasket seat properly. So we'll go ahead and take care of that, and then we'll go reinstall it. So when you're changing your oil, if you take a look here, that's all nice and clean, no gasket or anything. So what we'll do is we'll spin the filter up there and we'll be good to go. With Subaru 530, put a little ring of oil around the gasket so it would mate better, create a good seal. And then we will clean up the underneath here. So with your oil filter in place, you want to get that good and finger tight, hand tight, whatever you want to call it. So again, we're not over tightening this, we're just getting it good and snug. You don't have to, torque it to 1,000,000 pound-feet of torque. So there you go. Now your oil filter's on. We've got our plug in. Now all we have left to do is to put the oil in. By the way, on your oil that you used, which is right here in our drain pan, make sure to put that in a container and take it to a O'Reilly's or automotive store of your choice and recycle it. Doesn't cost anything. Ready to fill our oil. We've got our Motivix oil fill right here, so we'll go ahead and get that. This car takes 4.5 quarts. And I imagine I'll probably need closer to 4.5 since since some of it leaked out. What I'll do is I'll put the first little bit in there, and then I'll look underneath to make sure nothing's leaking. And so far so good. So we will continue on. So I don't know if you guys can see that dipstick, but the oil is right here. Here's the full mark. So I'm gonna start the car and let it run for a little bit, check for leaks, and see how much oil we get after the oil circulates out of the filter, because there's probably half a quart of oil in the filter. So after you've confirmed that you have enough oil in the car, no drips, no anythings, then you are done. That is how you change your oil.